It's October 21st, 2023. I'm flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verl.
And, yeah, trying to wake up after that Ohio State win.
Which still better than Navy. Just one first down, I believe, in the first half.
Yeah,
Yikes.
not a great performance from Navy.
Yeah, because just
Yeah, Ohio State 20, Penn State 12 in the offensive explosion that never happened.
yeah, because before we press the magic button, I asked Juan. I'm going. I was kind of wondering when you saw this matchup. Could have been a little bit sexier. And I'm like, why wasn't this game a 7 o'clock game? And I'm like, yeah, this is why this game wasn't a 7 o'clock game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Big Ten defensive football can.
yeah, all of the all of the rumblings I heard all week about about Penn State. I think like on Chris Russo on Mad Dog Unleashed. If Penn State, if not now, when all the hype on the Rich Eisen show, all the hype on the Pat McAfee show, and
Yeah. Not quite what they were hoping for, but Ohio
eh,
State remains undefeated. All right. So some bigger news. Kyron Williams to the IR for the Rams. Not good for anybody who picked him up. And no Justin Fields this week. He's
yeah,
going to be
just
out with that thumb injury.
as and the injuries continue to mount along with my apocalypse. I'm sure you have some very turd like matchups yourself this week going, God, I can't believe I'm starting them.
I don't have any that I'm like real embarrassed by. I mean, I've got a dynasty league where I'm playing Logan Thomas and Luke Musgrave in flexes, but that's a tight end premium. Thank you
Any
for
any any shares of Calvin Ridley? Good God.
no shares of Calvin Ridley. I was out on that train the entire way, and that looks pretty good.
Yeah, because I know that he really was absolutely just neutralized by the Saints, and it was good for the Jags that they had Christian Kirk and of course Travis Etienne. But yeah, you're just going. You're looking. Calvin really basically has only had one decent week so far that you can stiffen. Hopefully, after the bye, you have some better matchups, especially defensive wise, that open things up for him. But he has just vanished from the surface of fantasy and reality football.
Yeah, not great. Jaguars do win 31-24. Trevor Lawrence 20-29 for 204 and a touchdown. Punter Logan Cook pulled off a fake punt with a pass reception or a pass completion. Trevor Lawrence, the leading rusher for the Jags, 8 for 59. Travis Etienne, though, good night, 14 carries for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns.
my,
Also had 3 for 24 through the air.
my one of my questions I did ask with the picks: who have the Saints really played? And this definitely has answered that.
Yeah, still not. I mean, they weren't going to have a tough schedule all year, but this one was the toughest they faced so far. Christian Kirk led the way for the receivers, 6 for 90 and a touchdown. You
Yeah,
did mention Calvin Ridley,
really
1 for
played.
5.
One point. He did what Logan Thomas did the previous week. 1 point this week. So yeah, I know automatically who I'm blaming my loss. I'm prepared with how this apocalypse week has stacked up for almost a 0-4 record this week. I'm prepared.
For the Saints, not
Huh.
much good news if it wasn't Alvin Kamara. Kamara 62 yards on the ground with 17 carries, 91 through the air on 12 receptions. So a PPR monster this week. Chris Olave 7 for
Yeah,
57.
yeah.
Michael Thomas a touchdown.
Alvin Kamara may or may not be my final thought.
Well, we'll get to that here in a little bit. But the Jaguars do get the win. They move to 5-2 and are on a 5-game winning streak after starting pretty poorly to start the year. Saints fall to 3-4.
And maybe Dennis Allen will be finally let go. Maybe.
I gotta imagine if that offense is designed to look that way, he's got to be fired. If it's not, then maybe it's the offensive coordinator. But it was an ugly looking
Can,
offense. And
can we do just a quick non sequitur to college? As can you make any sense of this whole Michigan insanity of this stealing signs and why all of a sudden they're being singled out and investigated, because I'm trying to read into it and I can't seem to make heads or tails of this entire insanity.
I'm not sure, but it sounds like it's kind of what the Patriots were doing. They would send someone
Mm,
ahead, get the signals in advance, and then be able to scout the signals and teach the players the signals in advance. So it sounds like it's not so much the sign stealing, but it's one of those, if you can figure out their signs on the opposite sideline, good for you. But to send someone ahead weeks out and say, okay, we play Ohio State the last week of the season, we're going to send our guy out now. Watch the next 3 Ohio State games. They're going to be watching the sideline, writing down what they see. They can't record it because that would be worse.
mm,
But write down what you see as far as signals go. Try and figure them out. You can obviously get the all 22 game tape and match the signals with the plays. That's not hard. So you could figure it out, and then you could use that as an advantage when you actually play the teams down the line. Not a good look for Michigan, though, but they're not a great program. Anyway,
Harbaugh in the center of a controversy again. Who would have thunk it?
yeah, who would have guessed? So let's go back to the NFL. Let's do our Week 7 picks because, well, that's where we're at this time of the season. 6 teams on bye, so only 13 games. We both picked Jacksonville starting the week 1-0. And the first game on the docket is a good one. Detroit at Baltimore. Detroit at 5-1. Baltimore 4-2 for the Lions. Jared Goff's been on an absolute heater. If you've been playing him, keep rolling with him. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like he's going to be the number 1 running back. For what that means, probably not going to be a whole lot that you're excited about because, well, he just hasn't been that good. Craig Reynolds, if he is a scratch, though, that does help Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm on Ross St. Brown and Laporta going to be in your lineup as well for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, and then Zay Flowers if you need some help there. Detroit's got a very good defense, so temper your expectations. Joe, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, because the main thing you're looking at this game is that Goff is not as good on the road as he is at home. If the Ravens can stop dropping passes, they can get dangerous, and most folks might just go ahead and pick the Lions, but I tend to think they're in for a rough day here between settling for field goals and the injuries. Picking Baltimore might be risky, but with the bigger question being Detroit's run game, I think I'm going to take a big gulp, and I'm picking the Ravens.
Well, I'm taking the Lions. That defense has looked absolutely monstrous the last few weeks, and defense travels. And by the way, Jared Goff last week against Tampa Bay, one of his best career games on the road in Tampa. Baltimore's looked a little underwhelming of late. They're in a tough division, so they can't afford to lose a lot of games, but a game against Detroit is not one you're expecting to necessarily win. And I'm going to take the Lions. I think this team is just head and shoulders above
Yeah,
Baltimore for the most part, and they keep it rolling.
you have a disagreement right out of the box.
Well, I can say this looking at my picks. If you picked a lot of the home side, we're going to have a lot of differences this week. Next up, Las Vegas at Chicago. Both teams looking
Not
to be
not picking
starting.
home here.
Both teams looking to be starting backup quarterbacks. It's Field and Garoppolo both expected to miss. So Josh Jacobs in play. Could be a Devonta Foreman. And it could be Darrington Evans for the Bears. I don't know if I trust anything on the offensive side for really either team outside of Josh Jacobs. Devonta Adams has been kind of poor the last couple of weeks. He's dealing with a shoulder injury, and DJ Moore had the big blow-up game, but pretty quiet outside of that. So tread lightly in this game, but Jacobs is a surefire play, and then you do have some options. You're not probably benching Devonta Adams, but with the backup quarterback, it's not the best matchup for him. Chicago looked real bad. Las Vegas has won a couple in a row, even though they haven't looked great. Who gets the win?
As I tend to think that the Raiders should eke out a win here. Josh Jacobs is coming more into his 2022 form. It's never a good start when your main QB is out and your wide receiver 1 is limited. Raiders wins have been garbage teams, but then again, the Bears are probably going to be garbage without Fields. Raiders continue their win streak while the Bears continue not caring about the season because they have the first 2 picks. So Raiders are in for one hell of a weekend. Wake up call next weekend because, get those Lions are going to be who they're facing, but in the confines of Ford Field. But I think they can handle a fieldsless Chicago Bears this week.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Raiders as well, basically because I do at least trust Brian Hoyer versus the undrafted backup for the Lions or the Bears, Badgley, whatever his name is. I'm going to take the experience and the better running back in this matchup. Defense, I think Vegas is a little bit better. So Vegas, I think, just gets the job done
Is
in
that
what's not going to be an entertaining matchup.
would that be the Simpsons soundbite? I had no idea who that is.
Yeah, I mean, they released Nathan Peterman for this guy, so he's at least that good, which is
Somebody's starting him in fantasy this week.
oh yeah, he was a waiver wire addition for a lot of dynasty teams. Next up, Cleveland at Indianapolis. Cleveland, Deshaun Watson is still questionable. Was
So it
practicing, so if he
wasn't just
plays,
he didn't want to play against the 49ers.
that means Amari Cooper is a much better option. David Njoku is a better option. I think Jerome Ford is a very playable piece. The Colts defense got torched last week against the Jaguars. So I think some of these offensive pieces can be good. It's definitely better if Deshaun Watson's there. Ford's in either way, and then your receivers and tight ends are dependent on Watson. For Indianapolis, this should be the week you start to see Jonathan Taylor take the number one role outright. But Cleveland's got a very good defense, so it might not be a high-scoring week for Jonathan Taylor, but to see him get 15 to 20 carries versus the 10, 12 he was getting last week, step in the right direction. He's probably the running back you want to play of the Colts, if anything. Michael Pittman's been very good. Tough defense, though. So maybe a good week to not need him. But with the buys, you probably do. Who gets the win here? Cleveland or Indianapolis?
Yeah, because originally, before we pressed the magic button, my thinking was, and I'm doing a change. I'm doing a change in what my thinking was because Browns were headed for, I thought initially that the Browns could be headed for a letdown, that Minshew looks out to prove himself, JT getting warmer, Browns stunned the 49ers, but yeah, would it surprise me greatly if the inconsistent team, as in the Colts, get things done here? As Browns have it easy next week, they get the Cardinals. As Indy, if you kind of look at the pattern, they've been doing the WLWL pattern, so they should, in theory, pick up a win. And after this, they have a pretty sweet schedule for their bye. Before their bye, Saints, Panthers, and Pats. So they can't go 3-0 or 2-1 with that bunch. Throw in the towel. But as I said, my thinking changed because I saw what the Cleveland Browns defense did to the 49ers offense, and Indy is no 49ers offense. I can't believe it. I'm picking the Brownies to win their second in a row.
Yeah, I'm taking Cleveland on the back of the defense as well. I do think Deshaun Watson guts it out finally and gets on the field, which improves that offense. And Indianapolis looked so bad last week, and playing a better defense, I don't think it's going to get much better. Next up, Buffalo at New England. New England looks like the worst team in football. Ramondre Stevenson, you probably have to play him if you drafted him, but you're not loving this matchup for Buffalo. I think Allen, Diggs, even Gabe Davis are in play, and either of the tight ends, if they're both active, could be options as well. Buffalo has looked shaky the last couple of weeks. New England has looked shaky pretty much all season long. So who gets the win?
Yeah, with this game, I don't think you tend to need a whole lot of analysis here, as Bill should absolutely decimate the Pats. Bill Belichick will still be wondering when he will get his magic 300th win. Yeah, not this week, Mr. Bill, as the Bills get Pats, then Bucks, and Pats get Dolphins, Commanders, and Colts. So I don't really see 300 before the bye. Maybe after the bye at the Giants with how much of a train wreck they are. But I don't think there are too many people who are crazily picking the Pats. You got to go the Bills.
Yeah, Bills are just too talented in this one. They're going to get the job done. If not, the panic alarms. I mean, even if they win this game 14-9, like they did against the Giants, the panic alarms for the Buffalo Bills are going to start going off. But I think this is going to be a get right game for that offense, and the Bills get the job done. Next up, Washington going to New York to face the division rival New York Giants as the Commanders. Daniel Jones long shot to play, just breaking out. So as we're on the matchup, that's good to know. For the Commanders, I think this is a good spot for Brian Robinson. Terry McLaurin should be at least in your consideration for your lineup as well. And Sam Howell's a good flex option or a good streaming option at quarterback this week for the Commanders. For the Giants, Saquon and Darren Waller's about your best bet. We'll see if it's Tyrod Taylor. It might be a little bit better. Darren Waller's not going to be scoring many touchdowns, neither will Saquon Barkley, but they'll get enough opportunity to be good. The Giants look real bad. Washington's been very inconsistent, but when you have two bad teams, weird things can happen. Who gets the win?
Yeah, that Washington is definitely a better team than the Giants by far. And while the Giants almost had the upset of the week last week, hopefully Logan Thomas has more than one fantasy point this week. That honor has been passed forward to Calvin Ridley. Yay! On one of my teams. Excitement personified, I tell you. But yeah, Giants, everything is about Barkley not wanting to be traded. Guess what? They keep losing. Sorry, Charlie, you're going to be traded. And Washington will actually look like a juggernaut when compared to the Giants this week. So not looking too good for Tyrod Taylor and Mr. Waller, and even Barkley have to pick the Commanders.
Yeah, the Commanders aren't a great team, but the way the Giants have been trending, you just don't have any confidence in them. And we move to the next one. Finally, a game that's at least somewhat of a toss-up.
They've been trending.
Yeah. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Both of these teams fighting for top spot in the NFC South. For the Falcons, Bijan Robinson probably going to have a tough day. Tampa's run defense is very good, but he does get enough work in the passing game. The sudden breakout of Drake London and resurgence of Kyle Pitts is encouraging, so both are at least options. Again, a bipocalypse week. If you have these guys, they're probably in your lineup. Desmond Ridder, I don't think
this week Tyler Algier is probably in your lineup.
At least in consideration. For the Bucks, Godwin and Evans going to be in your lineup for sure. Baker could be a streaming option here, and Rachaad White could be a decent play.
Hopefully good. Please do something. Do something but running. Please.
Again,
anything.
We're on the part of the week where, or this week with so many teams on bye that you're going to be playing some guys you would rather not have in your lineup. And a lot of teams will at least. So both teams, a lot to play for. Division matchup. Who gets the win?
Yeah, I'll tell you, as you're checking out all the Bucs social sites talking about, Falcon is on the menu this week, and as bad as the offense that the Bucs had last week against the Lions, and at least they look good doing it in the creamsicles, the Falcons were worse against the Commanders of all freaking teams. As just Todd Bowles all of a sudden compared to Arthur Smith looks like Albert freaking Einstein. Bucs bounce back this week. I think they should be able to slow down the Falcons' run game. Not good for Bijan managers, unfortunately, but you're still starting him. Biggest challenge, I think, for the Bucs will be the run game. Can White get things going? Because that, in turn, will help open things up for Evans, Godwin, et al. I think the Bucs eke out a win as, yeah, they're looking for some payback after being humiliated by the Lions last week. So, yeah, and just you're questioning some of those Atlanta Falcons offensive plays, just like, what are they thinking? I'm going with my Bucs.
Yeah, I'm going with your Bucs as well. I think it's the first home team I've picked so far. Not many of those this week. I really just I'm not believing in this Atlanta Falcons offense. The defense has shown enough cracks to be concerning. In Tampa, outside of the times they've played Philadelphia and Detroit, two teams 5-1, two legitimate top end of the NFC teams, they have been the better team. And I think this is their statement that, okay, we might not be the top 2-3 teams in this conference, but we are soundly that fourth, fifth best team. Teams like Atlanta, teams like New Orleans, then you have your, Seattle's and Green Bay's and teams like that. No, you're below us. And this is an opportunity for them to have a statement game. I think they get it done against Atlanta, and we move on.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
You actually have to wonder how come Bucs and Falcons weren't one of the late games, especially with some of these garbage matchups.
Well, we have a headliner in the slate window for sure. But It's not this one. Pittsburgh at the Los Angeles Rams.
I don't
Both of
think
these
you're
teams,
picking the visitor. You're not picking the visitor team here. I don't think.
Pittsburgh is 3-2. The Rams are right around 500 as well. Cooper Kupp has come back with a vengeance. He's going to be in your lineup. Puka Nacua, I think, is still playable. And I don't know what you do without Kyron Williams. It could be a timeshare. Darrell Henderson seems to be one of them, but Myles Gaskin was picked up by the Rams. So
Former
in the running
Dolphin.
game, I don't know what you do, but I think the passing game's going to be full fire for the Rams. For the Steelers, Deontay Johnson's coming back. If you have a PPR league, he's a great option. George Pickens as well. No Pat Freiermuth. We'll see if Najee Harris can get anything going. He's been abysmal this season. But I think both quarterbacks are not necessarily great streaming options. Stafford definitely better than Pickett, but not necessarily something you want to rely on. Pittsburgh has a pretty good defense. The Rams have a pretty good defense here. So with that being said, Pittsburgh's got a lot of ugly, how do they pull that win out kind of wins. And when they lose, they get stomped. So who gets this win?
Yeah, I tell you, all you have to do is just say Steelers and Matt Canada. Sign me up for some Cooper time. As yeah, I'm taking the Rams as tough stretch. Right now is yeah, Hawks next 2 games, Browns, Ravens, Commanders. So they need a win here, and I can see them going 2-2 next 4.
Yeah, I think the Rams get this win. I think Cooper Kupp is just too much for this defense to stop. And then if they can get him wrangled in at all, that's when Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua are going to go off. They're going to have some semblance of running game. Just don't really know how that split's going to work because you lost your top 2 running backs in the same week. So who comes in as that number 3 and takes the starting role this week, I have no idea. But I think the Rams get it done in what should be a fairly gritty game. Next up, Arizona did not activate Kyler Murray, so he will not play as they go to Seattle, face the Seattle Seahawks. So Josh Dobbs has at least one more game at quarterback. He's been very serviceable for the Arizona Cardinals. Well worth a little bit of draft capital they traded away to play or to sign him. For the Cardinals, Zach Ertz and Hollywood Brown's about all you can count on because, well, that backfield's also without James Conner for a while. Not a clear split there. For Seattle, if they're eligible and healthy and playing, you're going to fire him up in this game. So DK Metcalf dealing with some ribs, dealing with a hip. If he can play, he's in your lineup. Tyler Lockett the same way. So it's Kenneth Walker. This could also be a good spot start for Geno Smith. With so many teams on bye, you will need a streaming quarterback, and he's a very good option this week. Seattle coming off a tough loss to a Cincinnati Bengals team who's looking a lot more like we expected now. So not a bad loss by Seattle. Arizona's coming off another disappointing outing. Who gets the win?
Yeah, this is just another one of those you're trying to figure out how is it a late game. I don't think any intelligent
late game because it's on the West Coast.
Yeah,
That's all.
How any intelligent person goes, I'm picking the Cardinals. Yeah, no, you got to pick the Seahawks here, and I'm sort of curious, and hopefully I'm not tramping on any final thoughts. If I am, please let me know. But kind of curious what your thoughts are about all of a sudden Mr. Williams wanting whichever team drafts him to have a part of the ownership.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
It's one of those things like you need the owners to all agree to that. And then what happens if we draft you, you suck, you're now a part owner of this team, and we don't even want you on our roster? Like, what do you do? No team's going to do it. So Caleb Williams, the quarterback at the USC, is who he's referring to, who said he only wants to play for one of 5 teams, and he needs ownership to. No, this guy is starting to scream Johnny Manziel to me in some really bad ways. I know we're not talking about this game right now, but I kind of, he was one of those guys, if you had a dynasty league that was a super flex, you were like, oh man, if I can get this guy, all of a sudden I could be in really good shape, especially if it's super flex and you don't have great quarterbacks. But now it's like, this guy might be a problem mentally when you get to the NFL level. Because in college, you can do dumb stuff. You can out athlete the people across the field. You could outthink the guys across the field and beat them. If you're not able to do both in the NFL, you're going to have some problems. And I'm seeing some wisdom issues with Caleb Williams. But back to this game,
So,
I'm taking Seattle as well.
well, that tells you how thrilling a matchup this is, right? Yeah.
Well, it had to come up sometime. Arizona's probably not. They're keeping Kyler Murray, but I'm taking Seattle. Arizona's had a lot of good fight, but they just don't get the job done. I'm going to take Seattle
We go
in what
to
should be a comfy win.
another exciting late game. Oh,
This
boy.
might be a very entertaining game, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Green Bay at Denver. Neither of one of these teams has a winning record. For the Packers, haven't seen much on Aaron Jones, so if he plays, he could be able to play. But if it's A.J. Dillon, this is a great matchup. You can fire the running back up. If it's a solo back in A.J. Dillon, he's a great play. Dobbs, Watson, and Jordan Love could all be very good options this week. Denver's defense looked terrible all but last week against Kansas City. And I think we have more concerns with Kansas City's offense as a result than we do confidence in Denver's defense. For the Broncos, I don't know, man. Like, the Javonte Williams is probably a play for you. And then Cortland Sutton, like, it's just gross. You could get desperate enough to play Russell Wilson, especially if you're in a super flex, and that's not a terrible matchup this week. Green Bay's defense has not been locked down. Two bad teams going head-to-head in the late window. Ugh, it's gross. Who gets the win?
Yeah, let's hide. I just think another questionable late game, as I said. I think Green Bay gets another ugly win as Denver continues their ride into the abyss.
Yeah. I'm going to take the Packers as well, mostly because I think they have a more cohesive offense and defense overall. I could see Denver being strikingly close, though, in this game. I just think Green Bay gets done.
Russell Wilson doing better, and then Russell Wilson winning games. Doing better, and then 1-5 is just doesn't cross over.
Russell Wilson has not been the problem with the Denver Broncos. Even last week against Kansas City, his wide receivers just did not get any separation. He's throwing into no windows. You saw the catch Cortland Sutton had to make because he just threw it up to him and said, hey, you do something because you're not getting open. Russell Wilson has not been the problem. But the Broncos are still not winning games. So both on Green Bay. And moving on to the late game window headliner. Los Angeles Chargers going to Kansas City to play the Kansas City Chiefs. For the Chargers, Justin Herbert's going to be in your lineup. Keenan Allen's going to be in your lineup. Austin Eckler, even though he's a little disappointing last week, going to be in your lineup as well. And Josh Palmer had a pretty good game. Now, Kansas City defense is much improved, but the offense leaves a lot to be desired. So Chargers definitely have a chance to charge this one up at the end. Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce going to both be in your lineup, as well as Isaiah Pacheco. And if you're looking for that DFS dart throw tournament play, Cole Hardman recently traded from the Jets back to Kansas City. Remember, he was drafted to fill in for Tyreek Hill. Didn't quite pan out the first time, but coming back, he's going to have a real shot at being the number one receiver for that team. So could be a sneaky play there. Not a great option week to week, but maybe in that kind of DFS environment he is. There's some concern around Kansas City's offense, even though they are 5-1. There's a lot of concern around the Chargers because they do Chargers things. Who gets the win?
Yeah, as the Los Angeles Chargers up against the Kansas City Swifties. And after that Monday night disappointment, it is really, really hard to choose the Chargers here. And let's hope that they're cleaning up those penalties. As every time you turned around, it was changing the air pressure. 15-yard penalty on the Chargers. I mean, Cowboys had their fair share, but it was just a fugly game. I have to pick KC here, as I think the Mahomes-Kelce show rolls on, and unless the Chargers do something that just really absolutely amazes all of us, they're slowly but surely showing that they aren't pretenders for the crown.
Yeah, I'm taking Kansas City as well. Their defense will keep the Chargers in check enough, and the offense will get enough done. It's going to be a good game. These two always have tight battles, but Kansas City tends to end up on the winning side, and I think that's what we see here.
The game.
The game of the week. And this is the first time in a while I can safely say most of the country, outside of their game, We'll be waiting all day for Sunday night as the 5-1 Miami Dolphins go to Philadelphia to play the 5-1 Philadelphia Eagles. It is by far the headline game of the week. It's one of the headline games in the last few weeks as Miami, offensive just monster juggernaut machine, goes to Philadelphia, who plays a very solid offense in their own right with a decent run defense. Raheem Mostert in your lineup. He's leading the league in touchdowns on the ground with 11 so far. Tua in your lineup. He's playing in an MVP pace, and if you're foolish enough to bench Tyreek Hill, you deserve your losses. Jalen Waddle also going to be at the very least in consideration. He should be in your lineup this week as well. For the Eagles, Dallas Goedert at tight end is going to be a good play. A.J. Brown has proved to be a menace all season long. This maybe is finally the Devonta Smith breakout game because Miami's defense is a little bit off. Not sure if they're going to have Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey has his window open, but not going to be active for this game, so the Miami defense is not going to be ideal. And DeAndre Swift, you got to play him as well as Jalen Hurts. So a lot of fantasy goodness in this one. What we hope is going to be a game that lives up to the hype. Buffalo, Miami a few weeks ago did not. So we're going to hope that this one lives up to the hype. But two very good 5-1 teams with vastly different styles. Who gets the win?
Definitely I think, analysis for most of these games, because most of these games are either they make sense, you know who you're picking, or it's pretty darn obvious who's going to win. Is Miami is coming off of making the Panthers look like absolute dog crap. Philly is trying to recover from losing to the Jets. Miami is all about Tyreek. Philly is all about A.J. Brown. This is the kind of game that comes down to who has the ball last, and I really don't think Miami has the defense to challenge the Eagles. I think this is one of those slobber knockers that's in the high 30s, maybe even in the low 40s. Over under at the when I was picking this one was 51.5 spread.
Highest of the week for sure.
And not even a field goal. So what does that tell you? How freaking close this game is going to go. Well, I think Miami can keep it close, but I think they get a case of Heartbreak Hotel here, and the Eagles go to 6-1 because Miami, I think, was just a little bit too cocky with the Panthers. They should have finished them off early, and I think that ultimately, with that mindset, comes back to bite them here. I'm picking Eagles. I still think it's going to be a damn good game and a close one.
I think Miami looked past Carolina for the first quarter and then showed up. And when they showed up, they did embarrass the Carolina Panthers. They saw that they had the Philadelphia Eagles the week after. They were coming off a nice win the week prior. I'm taking Miami, and like for everything you said, it should be a high-scoring game. In a high-scoring game, I'm going to take the better offense. There has been no better team on offense than the Miami Dolphins. Yes, Philadelphia has good run defense, but Raheem Mostert has yet to look human, and he's not even the best running back on that team, given the best running back is A-Chain. He's not playing in this one, but Raheem Mostert is yet to be stopped. Tyreek Hill has a chance to go over 1,000 yards in this game if he has another 150 or so yard game, which he's had multiple of this year. And that Dolphins defense has been slowly getting better the last few weeks. They got Jalen Phillips back. That's a big one. And I just think they're going to be good enough defensively to slow down the Eagles' offense just on occasion. The Eagles' offense has not looked 100% on pace up to speed. And I think the Dolphins just get one defensive stop too many for the Eagles to overcome it. I think the Dolphins win, but I agree with you. This should be like a 38-35, possibly last team with the ball wins type of game. Hopefully, it lives up to the hype because they don't always do that. Next
As
and
you
final.
mentioned, Buffalo, Miami.
Buffalo, Miami. I mean, Buffalo showed up for that one. Miami, a couple injuries early to the offensive line hurt in that one as well for the Dolphins, but it was living up to the hype until those injuries started piling up. Anyways, we'll move on to Monday night. San Francisco at Minnesota. San Francisco coming off the loss to Cleveland. Minnesota coming off the win at Chicago. Christian McCaffrey is practicing. He has an oblique injury. We'll see if he can go. Deebo Samuel is questionable as well. Keep an eye on the news the rest of the day and into tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get some clarification on one or both of them. And if you're not sure if they're going to play on Monday night and you do not have a Monday night option, I have Debo Samuel, and then I also have KJ Osborne. If you don't have someone you can swap places with, could be a good idea to bench your not sure guys like Debo Samuel. I think Christian McCaffrey plays. If he plays it in your lineup, no doubt about it. Brandon Ayuk's going to be fired up. George Kittle, I think this is a get-right game for Brock Purdy. And if Samuel plays, he was a decoy early this season. He could just be an outright bench at this point. I'm not 100% sure, but you don't want to necessarily take the risk. For Minnesota, TJ Hawkinson's going to be the best player on this team. Primetime Kirk Cousins against the San Francisco 49ers defense is not going to instill a lot of confidence. And we'll see if Addison and Osborne can help him out in the passing game or Alexander Mattison in the running game. It's going to be a tough one for the Minnesota Vikings, but Cleveland did beat San Francisco with P.J. Walker, Kirk Cousins, and that Vikings offense is much better, although the defense not what Cleveland has. Who gets to win?
Yeah, it's hard to really trust the Minnesota defense just unless for some reason San Francisco just for some reason has an inexplicable run of bad luck every time they turn around, which hard to see that happening. But yeah, stranger things have happened. But I don't foresee a Minnesota victory here. I know a lot of people said Minnesota is really fighting for everything, any chance to possibly still claw on to playoff hopes. I'm sorry, with what I've seen from Minnesota so far this year, it's very hard having any confidence, much less in a prime time. I know you had that one game last year where Kirk Cousins showed up in prime time. This is a new year, and Minnesota has lost their most valuable player for a couple weeks, maybe longer, depending on how fortunes fall. And I think what's going to fall here is definitely Minnesota. Just, not a lot of thought here. You had 49ers after beating the Vikings, which I think will happen. They get the Bengals bye week at Jags, and they get to humiliate my Bucks again. I'm not looking forward to that. Two out of three primetime games is good. This one is the clunker. I just hope KJ gets some meaningful time. It's going to be fugly. I'm picking the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm taking the Niners as well. I think after last week, they're going to come in a little angry, and that is not a good thing for whoever runs up against them. I'm going to take the Niners in what should be an easy win. All right, next, we're going to go do final thoughts, and we'll start with Joel.
Yes, you mentioned Alvin Kamara at the beginning. Here is who Alvin Kamara is currently, and this is from Joshua Show on X, Twitter, whatever the hell you call it now. Running back Alvin Kamara is currently scoring more fantasy points per game as a receiver than a WR like. Are you ready for some of these flying?
Oh, boy.
DK Metcalf.
I believe that one.
Chris Olave.
For sure, he's been a disappointment.
Marquise Hollywood Brown.
Brown's been good. That's a surprise.
Jalen Waddle.
Waddle's only had one good game. Not a shock there.
Garrett Wilson.
No Aaron Rodgers. That didn't help him out, but yeah, okay.
Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, he's been a disappointment as well.
Amari Cooper.
Yeah, not having Watson doesn't help that, but yeah, he's been inconsistent.
And no surprise at all, this last one, as probably anyone could outscore him this year, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, that's...
And that's my final thought. Thanks once again to Joshua Cho.
My final thought is just going to be enjoy the end of baseball season. We have a couple AL and NLCSs tied at 2. We could know our World Series matchup by Monday.
When you're watching the Arizona Diamondbacks and you hear down and out Evan Longoria's walk up.
Yeah, it's good for him. But anyways, that's my final thought. Just enjoy what's left of baseball season if you should choose to partake in that.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but go Rangers because you don't want the Astros to win.
Yeah, Rangers Diamondbacks would be small market fun for sure. All right, that's our time for the sports shuffle today. I am flying Ryan Go Christian along with
The person who actually did not drop today. Yoo-hoo! Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verla.
Hey, there's still time. No, there really isn't. Again, no podcast like this next week. Joel may do a solo show or two, but all the picks will be online, and I'm sure my deficit will get even worse. With that, we go.